Hi, you are listening to Urban Health Beat 2.0. I am your host, Marilyn Harris Davis, and I am joined by my co-host,
Dr. Garry Jennings. Great to be here, Marilyn, on this rainy Sunday.
I'm telling you, isn't this awesome? The virtual thing, it is so really cool. So we are really joined by a very special guest, and we are doing part 2 of a series that we had started a week or so ago, and we are talking about the psychological, physical, and spiritual health, quite frankly, of this COVID-19 thing, where we are all in here together. But I got to tell you, being enclosed, I'm kind of sort of getting used to it. What are you thinking, Dr. Jennings?
Yeah, especially on a day like today. No, I like to be by that fire you have behind you. That looks really nice and warm and everything.
I know. And you know, with the whole global warming thing and all of that, climate change thing. I mean, I'm like chilly, so I have the fire, and I love a fire. I love the sound of a fire is really soothing. And I think that whatever we need to do in these days and times that soothe us are a good thing. So, with that being said, we have a very special guest who is doing part 2 of our Urban Health Beat, my Urban Health Beat 2.0. I have to get used to the 2.0 because we've been Urban Health Beat for like 20 years, right, Garry, on the radio. Yeah. So we are Urban Health Beat 2.0. 2.0 is getting into the global economy and getting into where we are right now. So we have a really special guest with us, Carol. And you know what? I'm going to call you Dr. Carol. I know you're probably not saying that that's going to be the thing, but Reverend Carol Robinson Douglas, who is a minister and a psychologist. And honestly, in these days and times, we need both of those things. In our last show, we actually spoke more about the psychological effects of this global pandemic. And please don't look at my nails, everybody, because, you know, nail salons are closed. I'm just saying. But yeah, we were looking at the global pandemic, and we needed to look at the way it was making us psychologically process this relative to our economy, relative to our family. Oh my God, I can't even tell you how much I miss my family. And relative to our community. And now I just want to look at, every day I know that I speak to God and look at where are we taking this? I mean, God, what are you saying to us? Not that I'm expecting you to interpret that, but I'm just saying, what are you saying to us? But I think that it's giving us a message spiritually that we really need to listen to. And it's making us sit down and listen to it. So, Carol Douglas, as I said, I could read your entire bio, which is really extensive. University of Maryland, School of Nursing. By the way, she is a nurse, Dr. I call you Doctor, but Carol Douglas is a nurse. And so you are facing both of these initiatives, the spiritual ones and the physical ones, because you are indeed a nurse. I'm sure people call you. I'm sorry.
And also the psychological aspect. So she's a 3-4.
She's a 3-4. Yeah. It's true. And the psychological aspects, I'm sure people are calling you. I mean, actually, I was calling you last week. I couldn't even get in touch with you because I'm sure people calling you saying, I have this in my head, I have that in my head, and what do I do? I mean, there's spiritual, like you said, Dr. Jennings, and psychological and physical issues that are going on with this. Today, we are going to try to focus on, but I focus on the spiritual issues, but they are all intertwined. As far as I'm concerned, they're all intertwined. So welcome, Carol Douglas, who is the assistant pastor of my church, St. James, and also a friend of both Dr. Jennings and I.
Well, she's a past pastor of my church,
Okay.
Nativity. So that's how we've met.
Wow. A church is a church, right? And honestly, it's all about Jesus. So welcome.
Thank you. It's good to be back.
Absolutely. So what have you been hearing in terms of people calling you? I mean, I'm sure that you've had calls, inquiries, spiritually, psychologically. I mean, what kinds of things have you been hearing?
Well, you brought up not being able to get in contact with me last Sunday. And it's an example of the unintended fatigue of doing telehealth. When we're doing the video things all day long, and sometimes I'm doing it for 8 or 12 hours a day. And I didn't realize it, but it's like I went to virtual church on Sunday and I said, well, I'm going to take a nap. I'll get up at 2:30. I could not get back up. I could not get back up. Wow. I did not wake up until 6 a.m. the next day. I had no idea I was that tired. And
that's emotional draining.
Yeah, it is. And you don't really realize it. But I attribute it to the fact that you have to attend more to people. And I've also realized that when you cover your face, a lot of the nonverbals that you pick up with interacting with people, you don't get, you know?
Right.
No, it's true. It's true. No, it's true. You know, well, and then one of the things I was thinking about, you know, you're seeing people's eyes, and quite frankly, we can get a lot of emotion and we can get a lot of information from folks' eyes. Yes. But you're right. When we have a mask on, it's just like covering up half of our, I mean, it's like your smile, it's like, you know, your frown, whatever it is, you know.
So spiritually, Reverend Douglas, what are you hearing from your clients and from, you know, people that you talk to in church?
They're scared. Yeah. Quite frankly, they're scared. They're scared because they don't know what to make of all of this. They don't know when it's going to end. In my practice, I hear a lot of anxiety, and a lot of people have lost their sense of schedule, right? So we don't have to get up and go to work. We don't have a schedule. So we kind of meander through the day. We kind of get up when we want to, we get dressed when we want to, we eat when we want to, you know, blah, blah. And it sounds wonderful, except that there is something that motivates us with a sense of expectation and a sense of finality. So we know that, you know, if we get up, we've got to get up and go to work. We've got to be there at a certain time, but we also know that work is going to end for us usually by a certain time, 9 to 5. You know, we got to be there by 9. This will be over by 5. We can move on to something else by 6, and we can get to bed by 11. When we lose that sense of scheduling, we have no sense of expectation of when something is going to happen or when it isn't. And that kind of makes us uncertain. So it's this uncertainty that is very fearful. It's this low level uncertainty that kind of drives us and it keeps us from being unsettled. So even like you, Marilyn, who's by a nice fire, I think in Gary's response, God is telling us to rest. Right. We have no ability to continue the kind of lifestyle that we had before this virus hit. We couldn't spend money like we were. We couldn't be as inconsiderate as we were. We couldn't be as unconcerned about one another as before. We couldn't run the rat race of, you know, one more job and 2 and 3 jobs and worrying about the economy. I mean, everybody was exhausted. But look at just in the past month what's happened. The country, the environment has been able to rest. In China, they can finally, you know, talk about clear skies. They haven't seen that in a while because of the pollution. And this is the only way really to do it. God has a way of sending you a messenger. And then if you don't do it, then he just steps up his game. If you remember the Old Testament story of, he told, when Moses went up to the mountain, he told them what to do. And as soon as they left, they made all these, golden
idols and everything.
Especially if we go the movie of the 10 Commandments. And, Moses came down and he was just furious. He's like, we're not having this. God is at a point where he's just not going to have this. And we looked at the destruction, the tornadoes, the tsunamis, the volcanoes, the rains, the floods, all of that, and the destruction of the earth. How in the world else do you stop it? It takes an act of God to do that. And, this virus, for all its negative aspects, has caused us to have to stop and get back to some basics, which is God has always called us into relationship, but we were too busy. We had too many jobs. We didn't have time to interact with our children. Well, now we do, except now we don't have the skills to do it. So because we haven't.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
That's
a true thing. No, you're right. Because we haven't been doing it in the past. And now we're just trying to figure out how to make that happen. Wow.
Right. So we have the opportunity and to learn that that's a blessing, because the other side of it is because this virus is rather indiscriminate at a certain level. We're losing people we never thought we would. And they're here today and they're gone, and they're gone in a way that we don't get to say goodbye, certainly not in the way we're used to. Funeral homes have been very creative about doing funerals, if they do them at all. And so, it brings us back to the fact of learning to appreciate each day and who you have in your life that day. It forces us to do that. We really don't have a choice now.
It's true.
So God is always calling us back into relationship. Always. It's always about relationship. We are not created for ourselves. This individualism that we have in the Western Hemisphere, in a lot of cultures, it isn't even experienced. It's always about the welfare of someone else. And even now, you hear that, if you aren't doing something for somebody else, you're kind of like the pariah now. You're expected to, reach out to somebody, contribute money to the food bank, do something for somebody else, to move past yourself. And wearing our mask, as I said the last time, is an act of love, that I'm not protecting myself so much as I'm protecting you from me. So that's it. The other part is discernment, which God is always calling us to discernment. We, especially as Christians, we are always to discern, yes, this is what we have the option to do. Is this what God is calling us to do? Is this the best use of our time, the best use of my money, the best use of who I am? Is this the best use of my gift and talents? So, I've always had the old adage, we can do a lot. Just because you can do it doesn't mean you should do it. So, just because we can't lay in all day doesn't mean we should. God is still calling us, even in our homes, to be useful, to be productive, to improve ourselves in relationship with God by being in relationship with each other. And so sometimes you have to get past all the little pettiness and arguments. I'm working a lot with parents and children. Parents who've never had to parent this long during the day.
I know, right? I can imagine. Oh, wow.
And the frustration of having to do that, to teach them, number one, we're not going to focus on what people do not do well, but we're going to praise what we do see as well. Because people respond a lot more to positives than they do to negatives. That's everybody.
Yeah.
And God is willing to overlook our faults and look at who we are created to be. And so that's what we have to do. Nobody does everything well, but we all do something well sometime. The old adage, even a clock that's broke is right twice a day. So
wait a minute. Let me just go back to that. Okay. A clock is broke is like right twice a day, like 12 and 6. Is that what's happening?
Yeah. If it's broke at 12 o'clock, then it's right at 12 noon and 12 midnight.
I like it. It's funny. Actually, I'm going to say, because I'm in my mother moment, but it's interesting, speaking of clocks, and I will show you this. This is my mother's bracelet, and she died in 2003. And my husband, I was just like, I found this bracelet and it's not working. So, and he was just like, there's a little thing that is I guess a battery that needed to go in here. So I'm going to keep this bracelet on my arm, like forever and always. To keep me on time, which I'm challenged with, which Dr. Jennings knows. But and being
But at least that watch might be right twice a day, right?
Right, exactly.
So what can we do from a spiritual aspect to help us get through?
Number one, it's going to call us to really understand that there's some things we don't have control over. We just don't. We don't have control over this virus coming, how long it's going to stay, how long it's going to leave. So let's not think that we will. So let's look at what we do have control over. We do have control over ourselves. So what can we do? And Scripture tells us continue in doing good. So what are we doing well? Well, continue in prayer. Absolutely pray for yourself, pray for your household, pray for your neighborhood, pray for those first responders, pray for whoever you can think of. Now, the list may be long and it may only be a few seconds or a few minutes, but the ability to speak on someone else's behalf to God is a prayer. It doesn't have to be pretty, it doesn't have to be long. You don't have to get in everybody you can think of, but if you make the intent to think about and pray for someone else. Richard Foster said a long time, wrote in a book, that the energy of positive prayer, in other words, well-intended prayer, actually sends that energy to the place where you pray and actually starts to make a difference, whether or not you'll see it or not. So just to know that you're sending positive energy to a place where you intend does give you encouragement to continue to pray. I saw this actually during the riots after Freddie Gray. The religious community got together at a particular time and day and started to pray. And I said to myself, what is this going to do? But then I realized that this positive energy that we're sending forth is actually making a difference somewhere in the world, not only by people who see us or know that we pray, but that energy is going forward to actually change the minds and the energy, the consciousness of other people, whether we know it or not.
Even though we never person.
Yeah. So the first thing is prayer. Number two is to rest. God rested on the seventh day. And so there's got to be a time where we just call it quits. All right. But it has to be scheduled. We can't just say, well, we ain't going anywhere, so we're not going to do anything. God has called us to do something every day, but there also has to be a time to rest. And for some of us, we have to kind of hone in our habits of doing too much, thinking that the more we do, the better we are. That's not true. You don't have to do more you're already okay with God. You're already good with God. If you never do anything. But it's not that the more you do, the better you are. It's your intent in your head. What are you thinking? Who are you thinking about? What motivates you to do what you do? Is it because you think you'll get more money? Well, that's not what God intends. Is it because you make a difference in someone's life, to relieve someone's suffering, to increase someone's joy, to lift someone up? Those are the principles. Those are the Jesus principles, if you will, of the work and ministry and life of Jesus Christ. And as we are called to do as Christ has done, these are the ways that we do in every situation. So the question, remember there used to be an old adage a long time, WWJD, what would Jesus do?
Yeah.
That always has to be a thought in our mind. How would Jesus do this? If he was stuck home with the coronavirus, would he wear his mask? Would he call his friends? Would he pray? Would he consider what the plan would be going forward? What would Jesus do if he were in the house with the coronavirus? And we don't have to do a lot, but we have to do something. And it's not so much what we do, but the intent. What are we thinking about what we do? That's called discernment. You know, I could fix a meal because I'm hungry. I could fix a little bit more because somebody else is hungry, right? Kind of thing. The other thing is to realize that God has ultimate power, and to give up wanting to fix everything and do everything. The whole basis of belief and faith is based on humility, the ability to give up who you are and what you do and what you can do, and let someone else kind of take the reins. So when you allow God to take the reins on this and to kind of step back and fall back and realize that you have a place, but it doesn't necessarily have to be because of your strength, your time, and your power and your money that makes the difference, but allowing God to be powerful in this, whether or not you understand it. We don't understand God in the present. We understand God in retrospect. That's when we understand what he's doing. And thirdly, as our bishop would say, if it ain't about love, it ain't about God.
As our bishop,
Curry,
Michael Curry,
yeah, the presiding bishop, yeah, he would say, you know, if it's not about God, it's not about love. So everything has to be about an intent to bring other people's lives to a better place. Even in simple things, like I always think about the people who are in nursing homes, assisted living, and can't get out. And what people are doing, just going by with a big sign. I saw a whole caravan of balloons and people with cars that had signs outside. Yeah.
Oh, really? Huh.
Yeah, so simple things. It doesn't have to take money, doesn't have to take a lot of time. But when you reach out to someone and let them know that they're being thought of, it makes a difference. It makes a difference.
Wow, I'm so sure. So, okay, so you've given us your points, and pray every day. I'm thinking as a recap. But some of us, not us, but some people, they don't know how to pray. And, what I've learned in my walk with God is that all you have to say is, help me.
I'll make it shorter than that. Jesus. The word Jesus is a prayer. If you just say it, you'll start to feel your muscles relax.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
It's a meditation, it's a prayer.
It's true. Garry?
Yes.
Dr. J. Gary has, and I'm sure you may or may not know this, Carol, but Gary has gotten, I guess, a touch from God to start writing and start singing again in his church, and that's a ministry as well.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Right?
I've been writing a lot of songs that the choir have would sing. So we've been singing a lot of original gospel songs.
I think it's and he's taking some music and he's putting his. I mean, you know, I'm his worst critic, but but he can write well. I'm not sure about the singing part, but that's okay.
I don't have to sing. I just need the voices. Just bring me the voices.
But yeah, so spiritually, Carol, seriously, we all need to, you know, and I think that when we all look at the news like MSNBC, CNN, whatever, we see how many people are dying of this coronavirus. We're like, okay, so I might get it. I can go to Sam's Club. I can go to Costco, whatever. I might get it. And that's maybe God's will. I don't know. And I'm not saying that it is, but I'm just saying that I think we need, my perspective, a prayer of protection. Okay. And know that, you know, God is looking over everything.
It is, but my mentor told me a long time, God's power through human ability. So we have to do what we need to do.
We can do on our end.
Yeah.
Right.
And you know, I just want to, I guess, kind of break from this and say, again, discernment. So let's look at the numbers. I'm a person, I get really into the stats of things.
Okay.
So, you know, I stopped looking at it because I'm getting rather weary of, you know, I get it, you know, people are dying, but let's look at the numbers. The numbers that you're seeing are the number of people tested. They are not the number of people who actually may have it. So the only numbers that you're going to hear about people who have somehow gone to their doctor and gotten tested, and say of 46,000 people that got tested, 1,000 and 1,500 were positive for the disease, and even a lesser percentage died. So, you know, as I do a quick stats, we're only talking about maybe 1.5% to 2% of people who actually get symptoms of the disease, and they are recovering. Somebody put it very simply: if you have, it's basically an immune problem. So if you have a compromised immune system, you're more likely to get it. You may not necessarily die from it, but you're more likely to get it. The ones that, some of my clients that I see that are just really anxious and just really fearful, the first thing I do is let's go over the reality of how exactly this virus spreads and doesn't spread. You know, I was shocked to see this week that there's people actually injecting disinfectants. But no,
You know, that was like really, really crazy.
Yeah, because they just don't know how it's being spread. Number one, it's a respiratory virus.
And you are a nurse, and it's a respiratory issue. Yeah.
So the masks so let's look at it this way. Basically, personal space is about 3 feet. You know, we don't talk nose to nose, right? So basic conversation will spread.
Well, they say 6 feet, but yeah, basically it's 3 feet.
Yeah. So basic conversation will spread your breath about 1.5 feet. Just a normal conversation, how I'm conversing with you. If I cough, it will start at its maximum spread, will start at about 3.5 feet, and can go, if it has a wind, all the way to 12 feet. Okay. Really? So that's why they say 6 feet. So like, even if I cough, it's only going to go 3 feet. And it can go as much as 12 feet. Here's the thing. If you wear a mask, then your natural breath is only going to go a few inches. Okay, now in order for me to get infected from your breath, if you've got coronavirus, I would need to breathe it in. Number two, my immune system is not able to handle this virus, because if we couldn't handle any viruses, we'd all be dead long before now. So if I've got an intact immune system, I'm not going to necessarily get sick from it. But the virus may grow, but I may not get sick from it, and I may be able to spread it. So I remember back in the early 80s, I'm dating myself, but when AIDS first came out and we were not sure exactly how it was spread, we then said that we assumed that everybody was infected with it. That way we can stay safe. So everybody was handled with gloves and this, that, and the other. Let me just, two things about gloves and hand washing. Definitely wash your hands, but also realize you need to moisturize afterwards. Because what will happen, especially if you use hand sanitizer, which is alcohol-based, very frequently, it will dry your hands out and you start to get micro cracks in your skin, which will allow the virus to get in. So you want to make sure, you know.
Okay, so
it's an open area.
Wait a minute. So if your hands are dry, it will allow.
They're more likely can be cracked, right? Which will allow, if you put your hands on a virus that's alive, possibility. So just moisturize. You know, we as Black people, we need to moisturize. So use lotion afterward. That's one thing. The other thing about gloves. Okay, when you put, if I wash my hands and put gloves on, my hands are clean, but my gloves are touching the possibility of a virus infected stuff. So, you know, the thing about wearing gloves is it'll protect your hands, but it's not protecting anything else, right? Because if there's any kind of virus, it's on the gloves. So make sure that
Wait a minute, can I ask you a question? So can we put hand sanitizers on the gloves, and will that work or no?
Yeah, it would. It would.
I'm just saying.
Yeah,
it would. I have a hand sanitizer on my keychain, quite frankly, that my husband gave me. I was just like, okay, but you know, I mean,
what I see is people with gloves on touching their face, like you just touched your glasses, Marilyn. And if you have gloves
I know,
on,
and that's another thing. And that's did you tell me that, or did you tell me that, Carol? Because people who wear glasses all the time, like me, I don't know if you do, because you don't necessarily wear glasses when you're trying to be cute, but I'm just saying. But I wear my glasses all the time. But to wash the glasses off, you know, because I could go into Trader Joe's like I tried to do tonight, and I have the face mask on and the gloves, and then my glasses are exposed. So, you know, when I come back, we really, really, really need to tell people to wash off their glasses. And I
say wear the gloves to remind you not to touch your face.
Okay,
when you see the strange object coming up towards your eyes with purple gloves on, you should go, oh, wait a minute, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah,
that's a good point.
That way it'll help you. Otherwise, you might as well not wear gloves at all, really.
Yeah, no. I have to remind my son of that. Yeah.
That's a good point.
That's a very good point. So we only have a couple of minutes left. So Carol, let us know. And I know, and you, this is part 2. Quite frankly, we're going to do a 3-part series. But with that being said, tell us what to do with spirituality and praying. And I mean, you know, we can pray and some people think that God is like looking down on us and bringing this virus on us because we are so messed up on the earth. I mean, is that a right perspective, or?
It certainly can be. It has a lot of benefits. I mean, how else would we heal the earth that we have ravaged with pollution and greed and all of and chemicals? If somebody didn't take the reins, but I don't want to minimize the power of prayer. When you can't do anything else, you can pray. One of the most powerful things I have as a minister is my ability to pray. Regardless of anything I say, anything I do, my prayer is most powerful in the lives of people.
Sure.
And it doesn't have to be cute and you got to know all these formulas. Just say, you know, Lord,
God help me. Jesus.
Yeah.
Have you actually seen any parishioners or something with coronavirus? Have you had to? I'm just asking.
If I had to, what?
If you had to, I mean, pray for them. I mean, it's like with the whole death care situation right now, if you have to be away from your family, like a friend of mine has lost his wife. He could not get to her. I mean, she died within a week. I mean, she was 51 years old. and she died within a week, and he couldn't see her. I mean, I don't know what to do with that. I mean,
well, here's where spirituality comes in. And what do you believe what happens to people when they die? Mm-hmm. We have a faith that says that the spirit is with God, and even we are left with the earthly body. But the thing that makes the person has gone back to God. I tell people that, even if we could take the body in the casket and breathe life back into it, even the next day, it still would not be the person that because what connects us one to another, and how I can tell Marilyn from someone else, is your spirit. But that has always belonged to God. And so even though your body looks just like Marilyn, your spirit is gone with God, and you're still not the same person I recognize or connect with as Marilyn Harris. And that was never under our ability to create nor destroy. That was always under the power of God. And so in death, just as we do in funeral services, we celebrate what that life meant to us. And we give thanks for that, because were it not for the person who came in the uniqueness of who they were and what they did and how they acted and how they loved, we would not be the kind of people that we are. So we always think about, what did that life mean for our lives? And that you can do. And even though it is sad because so many people are dying without their loved ones around, you have to look at the fact that God was always there. God was always there when he accepted that spirit into life. He never
even if their physical family wasn't with them, God was with them.
Right. God was there with them. And there were people who loved and cared for that person before they died. They were not totally physically alone. There were people who cared. God sent someone to care for them for their last hours.
Absolutely.
And that has to be right.
Whomever.
And so going forward, we do what we usually do, is to contact the person. And there's nothing to say except, I just want to let you know I'm thinking about you. I'm sorry for your loss. That's all you can say. But that makes so much of a difference that you couldn't do anymore. Yeah. When Jesus was at the grave of Lazarus, yes, he did raise God. But at that moment, he was with Martha and Mary, because that's all you can do is be with that person. And that's all they need. They just need to know that you're there. It may not even matter, or they can't reach out or do anything else. But just the fact that you were willing to show up is the act of love, because we always ask for God to show up. And so when God shows up, he shows up in caring nurses and doctors. He cares. He shows up in phone calls. He shows up in posters. He shows up in emails. God always shows up.
Amen.
Yes, he does. Well,
so we are. He show up.
We just ask God to show up. So we are going to have a part 3, because I'm gonna tell you, you are the preacher. You are my ultimate preacher. And we really need to have more of this experience, because I'm gonna tell you, with this coronavirus thing, I mean, obviously we all know, I mean, it changes day to day to day to day, but we still all need to know how to emotionally and spiritually handle it, and so, as you know, at the end of Urban Health Beat, we always know that laughter is the best medicine. So I am going to ask both of you, okay, let me see. What does a lawyer wear to court?
What does a lawyer wear to court?
A lawsuit.
Gosh.
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
I'm just saying. I'm going to find some spiritual jokes, but really they're not many. There are not many going on right now.
Oh, fine. Don't.
But
I
I am
promise
gonna
I'll bring
actually-
some for the next show then. Wow.
But you know, some barbershops and hair salons, thank God. I'm not going to say thank God, just not here in Maryland, but some barbershops and hair salons, and excuse me for my hair right now, are opening up. But how did the barber win the race? Because he had a shortcut. Okay. I'm just saying. All right. Thank you so much, Reverend Carol Douglas. And
Thank you.
I am Marilyn Harris Davis, and you're listening to Urban Health Beat 2.0, the podcast. And I'm joined by my
listen
co-host.
to us and watch us on the Be Inspired Global Network.
Thank you, Dr. Jennings. Be Inspired Global Network and on our Urban Health Beat Facebook page. And you can text us or email us on Instagram or on Facebook. So we are here for you. And remember, until next time. And thank you so much, Carol.
Thank you.
And remember, until next time, your good health is a work in progress. So, work it.